Has there been a time when you disclosed something intimate, only to wish you hadn't afterward? With the passing years, I find the importance of discretion becomes more apparent. A certain sagacity emerges as one gets older. This isn't solely about knowing what to articulate, but also what to keep unspoken. Beyond the age of 70, the information I disclose can lead to unforeseen outcomes. Moreover, what might seem like a harmless chat can sometimes result in anxiety, misinterpretation, or a state of exposure I hadn't meant to establish. In this presentation, I'm examining 9 subjects one should refrain from discussing with others after reaching 70. This isn't to suggest a need for concealment, but rather because safeguarding one's tranquility, personal space, and security becomes increasingly vital. These are not confidences born of embarrassment. Instead, they are limits constructed from life's lessons. Every point is intended to assist in preventing emotional distress, safeguarding one's heritage, and maintaining one's self-respect during this significant phase of existence. Regardless of whether one has habitually been forthcoming or is inherently more discreet, I believe these 9 items are worth keeping more private, as unspoken words can occasionally be as impactful as actions. Furthermore, selecting what to disclose or withhold doesn't signify aloofness. It signifies prudence. I encourage you to remain with me through to the conclusion, as upon reaching the final item, you might perceive your daily interactions differently and perhaps even establish perimeters you hadn't realized were necessary. Let us commence. Number 1, your detailed financial status. Safeguarding your monetary details is among the most crucial actions I take after the age of 70. This protection extends not only to unfamiliar individuals, but occasionally even to sincere friends or relatives. Discussing freely the amount of one's savings, the nature of one's pension, or the complete worth of one's residence might appear innocuous, particularly in informal discussions. However, once such information is disseminated, it cannot be retracted, and not all individuals will treat it with discretion. A nuanced change occurs when others become aware of one's assets. Anticipations alter. Demarcations become indistinct. I might find myself solicited for assistance more frequently, or urged into ventures that are not truly advantageous to me. Even kin with good intentions might start presuming entitlement to resources that were never pledged, merely because they are aware of my possessions. Furthermore, divulging too much about one's finances can attract exploitation. Fraudulent schemes aimed at older adults are increasing, and the more specifics an individual possesses regarding one's earnings, possessions, or way of life, the simpler it is for them to customize their method of approach. Occasionally, the danger originates not from beyond one's immediate connections, but from among them. This does not imply a life of covertness, it implies exercising good judgment. I disclose monetary specifics solely to individuals who require such knowledge. My financial consultant, my wife or dependable partner, and possibly a single legally appointed family member or executor. However, informal contacts, remote kin, or excessively inquisitive neighbors do not require entry to these areas of my existence. Individuals who mature with prudence often handle discussions about money similarly to how they handle medical files, not from a sense of shame, but from an understanding of the perils associated with releasing excessive information. And this limit does not render one unsociable, it renders one secure. It signifies that my financial choices remain my own, and my mental tranquility is preserved. Number 2, your personal medical history in casual settings. Once I've reached a particular stage in life, health matters become a regular feature of my daily existence. Visits to the doctor, new prescriptions, various discomforts. These are tangible, current, and frequently mentioned in discussions without much forethought. However, after reaching 70, I find it prudent to hesitate before delving into the specifics of my medical past, particularly in informal or less personal situations. This isn't because one's narrative lacks significance, but because the manner in which it is perceived can influence how others view and interact with oneself. When I discuss every medical condition, surgical procedure, and health worry openly, there's a chance that others might start to see me solely through that perspective. I might observe individuals acting excessively careful in my presence expressing commiseration rather than esteem, or forming presuppositions about my capabilities. And once categorized as delicate or deteriorating, it is remarkably challenging to escape that label. Additionally, there is an emotional burden. Persistently recounting one's health experiences can keep a person bound to anxiety, apprehension, or even a self-concept centered on sickness. And when such specifics are disclosed to individuals who are not intimately connected, it can result in awkward remarks, unrequested counsel, or even critique that was never sought. I might hear statements such as, "Ought you really to be undertaking that journey?" or perhaps living independently is no longer suitable for you. All from individuals who scarcely understand the complete situation. Instead, I opt to share judiciously with dependable relatives, medical practitioners, or those experiencing comparable circumstances. Indeed, communicate openly where appropriate. Solace can be found in such bonds. However, with other people, I can merely state, I am addressing a few matters, but I am faring adequately, and conclude there. One is not concealing, one is maintaining one's independence. Individuals who mature elegantly tend to communicate purposefully. They discern when it is appropriate to be candid and when to keep particular realities private, not due to arrogance, but as a result of sagacity. Because not all specifics merit public disclosure, and safeguarding one's personal account is integral to safeguarding one's resilience. If you are continuing to view this presentation and find these observations beneficial, kindly comment with the number 2 below to indicate your presence. And if you have not yet subscribed, I suggest you do so and activate the notification bell to ensure you do not miss any future presentations. Your support aids us in continuing to generate worthwhile content to inform and inspire you. Now, let us proceed. Number 3, your private regrets or past mistakes. Each of us has segments in our life story we would prefer not to narrate publicly. However, beyond the age of 70, I find there is a more profound dimension to what I opt to re-examine, and more significantly, what I opt to disclose. Remorse possesses an odd tendency to persist, particularly when expressed in an inappropriate context. And although candor and openness are valuable, perpetually narrating one's past missteps can cause more damage than recuperation, especially when such narratives are imparted to individuals who have not merited one's confidence. When I speak of regrets, decisions unmade, opportunities forgone, individuals I've caused pain, I expose a sensitive part of myself. And if the person hearing this responds with criticism, apathy, or even a cursory disregard, it can intensify the ache rather than provide solace. What was intended to be liberating transforms into an additional burden to bear. I might observe that when I share these matters with someone who fails to treat them with sensitivity, it alters their perception of me. They might interact with me differently, characterize me by one isolated account, or start to intrude with counsel, views, or presumptions about my current self. However, one is not defined by one's history. One is not merely a compilation of erroneous choices or squandered chances. There is profound sagacity in discerning which elements of one's narrative are suitable for sharing and which are best addressed in private or with a genuinely trustworthy individual. This could be a counselor, a spiritual guide, or a steadfast friend who truly understands one. Yet, with other people, it is acceptable to merely state, "There are lessons I've acquired through difficult experiences," and let the matter rest. As I age, I increasingly comprehend that tranquility is not discovered through perpetual admission of fault, but rather through perspective. It is found in acknowledging that one's past has molded oneself, but does not possess oneself, that one's errors might clarify certain aspects, but they do not represent the entirety of who one is. Individuals who navigate their 70s and subsequent years with unwavering self-respect typically bear their history with a sense of ease. This is not because they are concealing it, but because they have reconciled with it, and they have come to understand that not every narrative is intended for all listeners. Number 4, your will or inheritance plans with non-legal parties. There is an intensely private and frequently very emotive quality to the decisions one makes about one's bequests. Past the age of 70, Many individuals, myself included, begin to contemplate more earnestly their last will and testament, their possessions, and the manner in which they wish their heritage to be transmitted. However, the reality is this: unless an individual has a legal role in overseeing that procedure, it is nearly invariably preferable to maintain the privacy of such specifics. When I begin to disclose who is to receive what, in what amount, or at what time, I inadvertently create an opening for discord. Anticipations arise, and comparisons commence. Individuals start to question why one person was selected over another, or why an asset was apportioned in a particular manner. Even within tightly knit families, and despite honorable motives, matters of finance and inheritance can provoke envy, a sense of prerogative, and misinterpretation more rapidly than nearly any other subject. Furthermore, divulging this type of information before arrangements are concluded or without a proper legal framework can have adverse consequences. I might alter my intentions later on. I might amend my will. I might encounter conditions I had not foreseen. And once those specifics have been articulated, modifying them can be perceived as a betrayal, even if it is the correct course of action for me. For this reason, individuals who mature with prudence typically confine these affairs to a compact, reliable group. They engage a legal professional. They select an executor. They record their desires unequivocally and in accordance with the law. And they restrict informal discussions that might create complexities in the future. This is not about being secretive, it is about responsible management. Disclosing my plans to all may seem open, but it frequently attracts undue influence. And when I give precedence to lucidity and legal safeguarding over widespread discussion, I protect not only my possessions but also my tranquility and the enduring relationships within my family. If you are still engaged with this presentation and find these points insightful, please comment with the number 4 below to signal your continued attention. And if you are not yet a subscriber, I encourage you to subscribe and activate the notification bell so that you do not miss any future presentations. Your backing assists us in continuing to produce quality material to enlighten and motivate you. Now, let us continue. Number 5, your emotional vulnerabilities with untrustworthy people. A unique form of resilience accompanies advancing years. It is the fortitude to discern when to be emotionally open and when to guard one's feelings. Beyond the age of 70, emotional perspicacity gains even greater significance for me. I've experienced enough to understand that not every listener is worthy of hearing my innermost thoughts and feelings. And although it is beneficial to discuss one's emotions, revealing emotional frailties to individuals who have not proven their trustworthiness can leave one vulnerable in ways that are more detrimental than supportive. At times, an individual may appear benevolent externally. They affirm, they inquire, they feign interest, yet later, I might hear my personal anxieties circulated as idle talk, or more alarmingly, my apprehensions exploited to influence, to dominate, or to construct an unjust or imprecise depiction of me. I might disclose feelings of loneliness, a fear of diminishing autonomy, or the heavy burden of particular family interactions on my spirit. And should these sentiments reach unreliable ears, they can be misconstrued or woven into a narrative that portrays me as erratic, incompetent, or excessively sentimental. Individuals who mature with elegance learn to offer their heartfelt sentiments with prudence. They do not cease to be candid, they simply become more judicious. They understand that being vulnerable does not mean revealing all things to all people. It means recognizing who is a safe harbor, who is steadfast, who will handle one's truth with tenderness and honor what has been disclosed. It is permissible to proceed cautiously, to observe how an individual manages minor disclosures before entrusting them with more profound confidences. And if an individual has previously demonstrated a tendency to engage in tattle, distort one's statements, or exploit one's emotions for leverage, I owe them no further disclosures. My emotional state is not their concern. My heart has endured sufficiently at this point in life. It merits security, compassion, and mature handling in response. And the less I confide in individuals who have not merited such a position in my life, the more room I create for those who have. Number 6, your relationship issues with your spouse or partner. All partnerships experience their fluctuations, even those that are robust. And following many years as a couple, it is quite natural for disputes, annoyances, or even past hurts to re-emerge periodically. However, upon entering my 70s, one of the most prudent decisions I can make is to safeguard my relationship by refraining from publicizing these challenges with individuals not directly connected or incapable of providing substantive assistance. It might offer momentary relief to express grievances about one's spouse or partner to a friend, a neighbor, or even a family member. Perhaps I share that I have been feeling ignored or that a particular action consistently troubles me. Yet, what frequently transpires subsequently is that the confidant develops a viewpoint, and once that viewpoint is established, it alters their perception of my partner. Even if matters ameliorate between us later, what was previously a personal dispute now becomes an element of our shared public narrative. Individuals start to form presuppositions. They might provide unrequested counsel, or, more detrimentally, they might begin to align with one party without understanding the complete context. And that can impose even greater tension on a bond I have diligently cultivated and preserved. There is an additional aspect as well. Divulging relationship vexations with excessive openness can occasionally keep one ensnared by them. When I merely complain without taking remedial steps, the narrative solidifies. I re-experience the discord repeatedly instead of progressing beyond it. Conversely, when I opt for discretion, when I convey these concerns directly to my partner or to a therapist or to a genuinely impartial party, I create an opportunity for mending rather than condemnation. Partnerships that last through the years typically hold certain matters as hallowed, not clandestine, but hallowed. They understand that merely because one is distressed does not necessitate global awareness. And they comprehend that preserving the public perception of one's partner, even through difficult periods, is an expression of enduring affection. Therefore, articulate when something is amiss, but do so with prudence. Shield your bond from superfluous interference and have faith that certain discussions, particularly the most critical ones, are intended to occur solely with the individual they genuinely concern. If you are still viewing this presentation and find these observations beneficial, please comment with the number 6 below to inform me of your continued engagement. And if you are not yet subscribed, I advise you to subscribe and activate the notification bell to ensure you do not miss any future presentations. Your encouragement aids us in continuing to generate worthwhile material to enlighten and motivate you. Now let us proceed. Number 7, your views on your adult children's choices. As a father, it is inherent to be profoundly concerned about my offspring. Even when they are mature adults, I desire what is optimal for them. I wish to shield them. And occasionally, I observe decisions they are making regarding child-rearing, partnerships, monetary matters, or their way of life that do not align with my own views. However, past the age of 70, one of the most demanding yet crucial abilities to perfect is discerning when to remain quiet. Voicing my opinions about my adult children's affairs, particularly to third parties, can rapidly lead to adverse outcomes. What I mean as solicitude might be interpreted as censure. What I perceive as sagacity might be taken as condemnation. And when these views reach my children, even via innocuous means, it can foster estrangement, bitterness, or even enduring tension in our connection. I might feel inclined to discuss it with a friend or a sibling. I simply cannot comprehend why Michael quit his job, or I wish Lisa would approach child rearing differently. However, once those words are uttered, they take residence in another person's thoughts, and their viewpoint of my child can be permanently altered. More alarmingly, if news of this reaches them, the confidence I have cultivated can suffer a significant blow. Individuals who maintain strong relationships with their grown children know how to practice emotional restraint. They remind themselves that unsolicited counsel frequently feels like an attempt to exert dominance. They await an opening. They communicate softly when the opportunity arises, and most importantly, they keep personal views confined to where they should be, in private. This does not imply a cessation of concern. It signifies the beginning of trust. trusting that my children are navigating their own existences, acquiring knowledge in their unique manner, and trusting that my unobtrusive support, my steadfast availability, and my considerate detachment often convey more than any articulated view ever could. My sagacity still holds value, but when presented at the opportune moment and in the appropriate fashion, it is received with affection rather than opposition. And over time, that deference cultivates the type of bond that endures. Number 8, your passwords, PINs, or important access information. Beyond the age of 70, overseeing my digital and monetary safety becomes increasingly paramount. However, so too does discerning whom to entrust with my confidential data. Disclosing passwords, access to banking, or vital personal information, even to relatives, ought never to be undertaken informally. This is not because I anticipate individuals will abuse it, but because the potential for harm escalates the more broadly it is disseminated. It might seem practical to provide my grandson with my email password so he can assist me in resetting an account. Or perhaps I've informed a neighbor of the location of my checkbook for emergency situations. Yet, once that information is no longer under my direct authority, I cannot always foresee its destination or how it might be utilized. Deception targeting older individuals is a genuine threat, and it does not invariably originate from unknown persons. Occasionally, it is a relative who believes they have a right to it. At other times, it is a friend experiencing financial difficulties. In still other instances, it is merely an error, someone divulging your details to another party under the impression they are assisting. And before one realizes it, one's personal confidentiality is breached. The most prudent strategy is for me to store my passwords and confidential data securely and to disclose them solely through legally sanctioned channels. This could involve appointing a dependable individual with power of attorney, arranging access with my bank for a designated representative, or employing a secure password management tool from which information can be safely recovered if required. Individuals who preserve their autonomy in their later years frequently share a common characteristic. They maintain command over their information, not by means of concealment, but through organized methods. They arrange their paperwork, they create records, they make provisions for the future, and they refrain from relinquishing access to their private domain unless it is unequivocally essential. There is no element of excessive suspicion in safeguarding my digital existence. It is an integral part of preserving my self-respect, my possessions, and my independence. And the smaller the number of individuals who possess the means to access my confidential records, the more secure my future will be. I am not being overly defensive, I am being prudent. And that sagacity yields dividends in the form of mental tranquility and in maintaining firm control over what belongs to me. If you are still viewing this presentation and find these points beneficial, please comment with the number 8 below to indicate your continued presence. And if you have not yet subscribed, I suggest you do so and activate the notification bell to ensure you do not miss any future presentations. Your encouragement assists us in continuing to produce quality material to enlighten and motivate you. Now, let us continue. Number 9, your plans to move, downsize, or change your living situation. In my 70s and subsequent years, the notion of modifying where or how I reside becomes an exceedingly personal determination. Perhaps I have contemplated relocating nearer to relatives, scaling down to a more manageable dwelling, or moving into a retirement complex. However, this is where matters can become complicated. Disclosing such intentions prematurely and to an excessive number of individuals can invite a barrage of influence before I am fully prepared. What starts as a fleeting idea, such as, perhaps I will sell the house in a year or so, can rapidly escalate into a flurry of counsel, presuppositions, or even unrequested assistance. Relatives might urge swifter measures. Friends might begin to interact with me differently, as though I were already on the verge of departure. And more problematically, someone might commence making arrangements on my behalf rather than in consultation with me. The instant I divulge something as significant as a change in living arrangements, individuals instinctively impose their own apprehensions, wishes, or viewpoints upon it. That's too distant. You will rue the sail. You ought to come live with us. All potentially sincere, but not invariably beneficial. And if I am still in the phase of deliberation, such clamor can obscure my judgment and generate needless stress. For this reason, many individuals who mature with lucidity opt to deliberate these choices in private initially. They write in journals, they engage in prayer, they converse with one or two profoundly reliable confidants, not their entire social sphere. They collect information, assess their alternatives, and proceed at their own preferred speed. And when they are prepared to take action, that is when they disclose their plans. Declaring intentions ahead of time, particularly substantial ones, can transform my personal deliberation into a matter of public discussion. And the greater the number of opinions involved, the more intricate the situation becomes. However, by keeping my plans confidential until I feel assured and definite, I safeguard the tranquility and autonomy that this phase of life merits. I do not owe anyone premature insight into my decision-making. When the moment is appropriate, I will include the suitable individuals, and those genuinely concerned for my welfare will honor my timing and my privacy as I design the subsequent stage of my existence. Final thoughts. As I conclude this presentation, I invite you to pause and reflect on what we have examined collectively. These 9 items might appear minor individually, but upon closer inspection, they all converge on a central concept: safeguarding one's tranquility. Beyond the age of 70, my time, my energy, and my emotional security are more precious than at any previous time. And understanding what to withhold from discussion can be as potent as knowing what to articulate. Which of these points resonated most strongly with you? Have you found yourself divulging too much about a matter that subsequently felt unsettling? Or have difficult lessons taught you that particular subjects are best held in reverence? You are not singular in this experience. Many of us arrive at this phase of life and comprehend that establishing limits is not about erecting barriers. It is about fashioning an environment where esteem and lucidity can flourish. Disclosure remains a fine thing, but now it involves sharing prudently with appropriate individuals at opportune times. Such judiciousness is not unfeeling or aloof. It is one of the most considerate and sagacious presents I can bestow upon myself. Thank you for joining me today. I would be delighted to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below and mention one insight you gained today and how you intend to apply it in your life. Your perspectives are valuable to me, so please do not hesitate to express them. Reading your remarks provides me with significant motivation and encouragement. If you found this presentation enjoyable and beneficial, kindly like, subscribe, and distribute it. Your backing assists me in continuing to produce quality material to enlighten and motivate you. Thank you for your attention, and I anticipate your presence for the next presentation.